Hey there, English learners. Are you ready to take your English to the next level? Here on the Speakeasy, we make learning English idioms fun, easy, and practical.
And I think we should start with one that's always a bit ironic, break a leg. Now, you wouldn't actually want someone to break a bone, right?
Definitely not.
Okay, good.
But this idiom is all about wishing someone good luck, especially in a performance or competition. And it's thought to come from the theater world, where a successful show would lead to so much applause that the actors would literally bow so low their legs might break.
Wow, that's a pretty intense image. So it's like saying, may you be so successful that you practically break from bowing.
Exactly. And it shows how idioms can capture these cultural nuances that you wouldn't get from just the literal words.
That makes so much sense. And speaking of success, how about hit the nail on the head? I feel like I use this one all the time when someone gets something exactly right.
Yeah, it's a classic, and it perfectly captures that feeling of precision, like a skilled carpenter driving a nail straight in with a single blow. It can describe a perfect solution, a spot-on observation, or even just a really witty remark that nails the situation.
You know what? That actually reminds me of another one, bite the bullet. Because sometimes to hit the nail on the head, you have to face a challenge head on, even if it's unpleasant.
Absolutely. And that idiom has a pretty fascinating origin, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's believed to come from a time before anesthesia when soldiers would bite down on a bullet during surgery to help them endure the pain.
Oh, wow, that's hardcore. No wonder it's associated with facing tough situations. But sometimes, facing those challenges means working late into the night.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to burn the midnight oil?
Who hasn't?
Right.
It evokes that image of burning candles for light while working long past sunset. It really captures the dedication and effort needed to achieve a goal, especially when deadlines are looming.
But let's be honest, sometimes we just have to admit defeat and throw in the towel. Is that one also rooted in history?
You bet.
Okay.
It comes from the world of boxing, where a fighter's corner would literally throw a towel into the ring to signal surrender and stop the fight.
Makes sense. It's like saying, okay, I've fought hard, but it's time to accept that this isn't working.
Exactly. And sometimes throwing in the towel can actually be a strategic move, allowing you to regroup and focus on other opportunities.
Speaking of opportunities, I think we should talk about cost an arm and a leg. Because, let's face it, some things are just way too expensive.
It's a great idiom for conveying that sense of exorbitant cost. And while its exact origins are debated, it definitely paints a vivid image of sacrificing something valuable to obtain something else.
Right, like, that new phone cost me an arm and a leg, but the camera's amazing.
Exactly. It really emphasizes that sense of sacrifice and perhaps a touch of regret for the financial hit.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about secrets. Have you ever let the cat out of the bag?
Oh, I've definitely been on both sides of that one. It's such a visual idiom, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's thought to have originated from medieval markets where unscrupulous sellers would try to pass off a pig in a bag as a more valuable cat. So letting the cat out of the bag exposed the deception.
Wow, that's a fun fact. And it makes sense, because spilling a secret can often feel like exposing something that was supposed to be hidden.
Yeah, it definitely captures that element of surprise and unintended revelation.
It's similar to spill the beans, right?
Absolutely. Both idioms essentially mean to reveal a secret, often unintentionally.
And sometimes, to avoid spilling the beans, people beat around the bush.
Right.
They just dance around the topic instead of getting straight to the point.
It's like they're trying to catch a bird without actually going into the bush where it's hiding. It can be frustrating, especially when you're looking for a direct answer.
Oh, I know. And it makes me wonder, why are they so afraid to just say what they mean?
I think it often comes down to a fear of confrontation or a desire to avoid hurting someone's feelings, but ultimately clear communication is usually the best policy.
Couldn't agree more. But some things are better left unsaid, especially if they're incredibly unlikely to happen. You know, like when pigs fly.
Ah, yes, the ultimate expression of impossibility. It conjures up that amusing image of pigs defying gravity, and it's a perfect way to dismiss something that's just not going to happen.
It's like saying, yeah, right, and I'll win the lottery tomorrow.
Exactly. It's a humorous way to shut down an idea that's just not realistic.
And then there's once in a blue moon. For those things that happen super rarely, it's like that rare occurrence that makes you stop and take notice.
It's a beautiful idiom, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it actually has a basis in astronomy.
Oh.
A blue moon is a second full moon that occurs within a single calendar month, a phenomenon that only happens every few years.
Wow, I had no idea. So it's like saying this is as rare as seeing a blue moon.
Precisely. It emphasizes the infrequency and specialness of an event.
But sometimes things happen more frequently than we'd like feeling under the weather. Nobody wants to be sick, right?
Definitely not.
Okay, good.
It's a common way to describe feeling ill, and it might come from the nautical world where rough seas could make sailors feel unwell.
Makes sense. It's like saying, I'm not feeling my best, but hopefully this storm will pass soon.
And speaking of things passing quickly, let's talk about tasks that are a piece of cake. They're so easy, they're practically effortless.
The sweet taste of success without breaking a sweat. It's like that moment when you ace a test without even studying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a great way to describe something that's simple and enjoyable to do, and it might come from the 19th century when cakes were given as prizes at competitions.
Oh, so winning was as easy as pie, or cake in this case. I love how these idioms give us a glimpse into history.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It shows how language is constantly evolving and adapting to reflect our experiences.
Okay, before we move on, I have to ask about pulling someone's leg. Is this just a harmless joke, or can it be mean-spirited?
It definitely depends on the context and the relationship between the people involved.
Okay.
It's meant to be lighthearted teasing, but if it's done with malicious intent, it can cross the line into bullying.
That's a good point. So it's all about reading the room and making sure everyone's in on the joke.
Exactly. Humor should be inclusive and never at someone's expense.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here with everyday idioms. What do you think?
We have. It's amazing how these phrases are woven into our daily conversations, adding color, humor, and even a touch of history to our communication.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's really remarkable, how much these seemingly simple phrases
Yeah.
can tell us about ourselves and how we view the world.
Right. It's like each idiom is a little story waiting to be told.
Uh-huh.
Okay, are you ready to move on to our next category? Work and business idioms.
Absolutely. Let's dive into the language of the workplace and see what gems we can uncover.
All right, to kick things off, let's talk about a phrase that I think every boss wants to hear.
Okay.
Go the extra mile. It's all about going above and beyond, right?
Exactly. It's that willingness to exceed expectations and put in that extra effort, even when it's not strictly required. It's about demonstrating dedication and a commitment to excellence.
It's like that colleague who not only finishes their own work on time, but also helps out their teammates and anticipates potential problems before they arise.
Yeah, they don't just meet the bare minimum, they strive to make a real impact. And this idiom might come from ancient Rome, where soldiers were sometimes asked to march an extra mile beyond their usual duties, showcasing their commitment to the cause.
Wow, talk about going the extra mile. But speaking of dedication, what about burning the candle at both ends? I feel like that describes a lot of people in today's fast-paced work environment.
It definitely does. It's about pushing yourself to the limit, often working late into the night and early in the morning, sacrificing sleep and personal time to get things done. It can be effective in the short term, but it's definitely not sustainable.
It's like trying to run a marathon without proper training.
Mm.
You might make some initial progress, but you're likely to burn out quickly.
Exactly. And that's where the image of the candle burning at both ends comes in. It eventually consumes itself entirely.
So it's a reminder to find a balance between hard work and self-care.
Absolutely. And that balance is key to achieving long-term success.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a situation where you needed to learn the ropes?
Oh, for sure. Especially when starting a new job or taking on a new responsibility. It's that crucial phase of absorbing information, understanding the processes, and essentially becoming proficient in a new environment.
It's like being an apprentice, learning from those who have more experience, and gradually becoming more confident in your abilities.
Yes. And the idiom itself is thought to come from the age of sailing ships, when new sailors had to learn how to handle the ship's ropes to control the sails.
That makes so much sense. It's like learning the fundamentals of a new skill or trade.
And once you've learned the ropes, you might encounter those who prefer to do things by the book.
Ah, the rule followers.
Yeah.
Those who adhere strictly to procedures and regulations, leaving no room for improvisation.
Exactly. It's like following a recipe precisely, measuring every ingredient and sticking to the instructions without any deviation.
So it can be both a positive and a negative thing, right?
Absolutely. Following the rules can ensure consistency and accuracy, but it can also stifle creativity and lead to rigidity.
I guess it depends on the situation and the desired outcome.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about making decisions.
Okay.
I love this idiom. The ball is in your court. It's like passing the responsibility to someone else.
Right. Precisely. It shifts the focus from the speaker to the listener, indicating that it's their turn to make a move or respond to a proposal.
It's like in a tennis match. Once the ball is in your court, you have to decide how to play it. Do you return the serve or let it go out of bounds?
It's a powerful idiom because it puts the decision-making power squarely in the hands of the other person.
And sometimes that decision involves taking a risk, even if the odds are stacked against you. Kind of like a long shot, right?
Exactly. It's a situation where the chances of success are slim, but there's still a possibility of achieving the desired outcome.
It's like that underdog team that everyone expects to lose, but who ends up pulling off a surprising upset.
Or that entrepreneur who launches a business idea that everyone thinks is crazy but ends up becoming a huge success.
Those are definitely inspiring examples. But let's face it, sometimes our plans don't work out and we have to go back to square one.
It's that frustrating moment when you realize you've hit a dead end and need to start over from scratch.
It's like playing a board game and landing on a space that sends you all the way back to the beginning.
Exactly. But even though it can be discouraging, going back to square one can also be an opportunity to reassess your approach, learn from your mistakes, and come up with a more effective strategy.
That's a great way to look at it. It's like saying, okay, this didn't work, but let's use this as a learning experience and try again with a fresh perspective.
And sometimes, to get that fresh perspective, we need to think outside the box.
Ah, the classic call for creativity. It's about challenging assumptions, breaking free from conventional thinking, and exploring new and innovative solutions.
It's like looking at a problem from a completely different angle, seeing possibilities that others might miss.
It's like that inventor who comes up with a groundbreaking solution that no one else thought of because they were too stuck in their old ways of thinking.
Precisely. Thinking outside the box is essential for progress and innovation in any field.
Okay, I'm curious about this next one.
Yeah.
What does it mean to put all your eggs in one basket?
It's a warning against relying too heavily on a single plan or strategy. It suggests that diversification is key to mitigating risk.
So it's like saying, don't put all your money on one horse in a race.
Exactly. Spread your investments, explore multiple options, and don't pin all your hopes on a single outcome.
That's a great lesson for both business and life in general.
Absolutely. It's about managing risk and increasing your chances of success by having multiple backup plans.
Okay, let's talk about teamwork.
Okay.
Have you ever been in the same boat as your colleagues?
I think we've all been there at some point. It's that feeling of shared struggle or shared circumstances, often when facing a challenge or going through a difficult time together.
It's like being on a ship that's navigating through stormy waters. Everyone is affected by the rough seas, and they need to work together to stay afloat.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in our struggles, and that supporting each other can make a huge difference.
And speaking of support, it's important to have a good leader who's willing to get the ball rolling on projects and initiatives.
Absolutely. It's about taking that initial step, initiating action, and setting things in motion. A good leader can inspire their team to take ownership and make progress towards a common goal.
It's like that coach who motivates their team with a pep talk before a big game, giving them the energy and focus they need to succeed.
Or that project manager who clearly outlines the steps and deadlines, creating a roadmap for the team to follow.
Okay, I have to ask about a phrase that I've always found a bit unsettling.
Okay.
Throwing someone under the bus. It's definitely not a pleasant idiom, and it describes a betrayal of trust, where someone sacrifices another person to save themselves or protect their own interests.
Yeah, right.
It's like that politician who blames their staff for a scandal to avoid taking responsibility for their own actions.
Or that coworker who lets a colleague take the fall for a mistake they made together to avoid getting in trouble with their boss.
It's a reminder that true leadership and teamwork involve taking responsibility for your actions and supporting your colleagues, even when things get tough.
I couldn't agree more. Integrity and loyalty are essential qualities in any strong team.
But sometimes, even with the best intentions, things don't go as planned,
Right.
and we have to go back to the drawing board.
It's that moment when you realize your initial plan isn't working, and you need to rethink your approach and come up with a new strategy.
It's like that architect who realizes their initial design for a building is flawed and needs to go back and create a new blueprint.
Or that writer who scraps their first draft of a novel because they realize the story isn't working and needs a major overhaul.
It can be frustrating, but it's often an essential step in the creative process.
Absolutely. It's about being adaptable, open to feedback, and willing to make changes to achieve the best possible outcome.
Okay, I want to end this section with an idiom that I think is super important for making a good first impression.
Okay.
Hit the ground running.
It's all about starting strong, coming in prepared, and making an immediate positive impact.
It's like that new employee who joins a company and immediately impresses everyone with their skills, enthusiasm, and willingness to contribute.
They don't need a lot of hand-holding or training. They're ready to jump right in and make a difference from day one.
It's like they've been training for this moment their whole lives, and they're eager to show what they can do.
I love that analogy. It perfectly captures that sense of preparedness and eagerness to make a contribution.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground in the work and business category. I feel like I've learned so much already.
Me too. It's fascinating how these idioms reveal so much about the dynamics of the workplace, from leadership and teamwork to problem solving and innovation.
All right, I'm ready for a change of pace.
Okay.
How about we explore some idioms that capture the ups and downs of relationships,
Yeah.
Those sayings that help us navigate the complexities of love, friendship, and all those messy but beautiful connections we have with other people.
I'm all for it. Relationship and social idioms can be quite revealing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure.
They offer a glimpse into how we perceive and express those bonds, conflicts, and everything in between.
Absolutely. Let's start with one that speaks to the heart of true friendship. A shoulder to cry on. We all need that person we can turn to when life gets tough, right?
Without a doubt. It's that trusted friend who offers comfort, empathy, and a listening ear without judgment. Someone who provides solace during difficult times, allowing us to release our emotions and feel supported.
It's like having a safe haven where you can be vulnerable and know that you'll be met with understanding and kindness. And sometimes after a disagreement, we need to bury the hatchet to move forward.
Exactly. Burying the hatchet symbolizes letting go of past grievances, forgiving transgressions, and essentially making peace. It signifies a willingness to move beyond conflict and rebuild the relationship.
It's like saying, okay, we've had our differences, but let's put that behind us and focus on what's important in our connection.
And that willingness to reconcile can be so powerful.
Yeah.
It allows for healing and growth in the relationship.
And speaking of connections, what about that instant spark you feel with some people when you just hit it off right away?
That feeling of immediate rapport and connection.
Yeah.
It's like a conversation flows effortlessly, you share common interests, and you just vibe with each other on multiple levels.
Yeah, it's like that first date where you can talk for hours and it feels like you've known each other forever. Or meeting someone at a party and instantly feeling like you found a kindred spirit.
Those moments are truly special.
Yeah.
And they often lead to strong and lasting relationships.
But sometimes, even in the best relationships, we need to make sure we're on the same page.
Right.
To ensure we have a shared understanding or agreement on something.
Absolutely. Clear communication is crucial, especially when making important decisions or navigating complex situations together. Being on the same page ensures that both parties are aligned in their goals, expectations, and approach.
It's like that couple who's planning a trip together. They need to be on the same page about their budget, destination, and itinerary to avoid any conflicts or surprises along the way.
Or business partners who are launching a new venture. Being on the same page about their roles, responsibilities, and vision for the company is essential for success.
But let's face it, not everyone is always going to agree with us. What do you think about the phrase, see eye to eye?
Seeing eye to eye means to agree on a particular issue or share a similar perspective. It signifies a meeting of the minds, a convergence of viewpoints.
It's like that moment when you're debating a topic with someone and you realize that you actually agree on the fundamental points, even if you have some minor differences in opinion.
And that realization can be a springboard for collaboration and understanding, even in the face of disagreement.
Now, I have to ask about a phrase that I've always found a bit harsh.
Yeah.
Give someone the cold shoulder.
Yeah.
It sounds so icy.
It definitely does. It describes intentionally ignoring or snubbing someone as a way of expressing displeasure or disapproval.
It's like that friend who's upset with you and refuses to answer your calls or texts. Or that acquaintance who pretends not to see you at a social gathering.
It's a form of social punishment. A way of communicating that you're not happy with someone's behavior without directly confronting them.
So it's like saying, I'm upset with you,
Yeah.
and I need some space right now.
Exactly. It's a way of setting boundaries and protecting yourself emotionally.
But when meeting someone new, we often try to break the ice to create a more relaxed atmosphere.
Yes. Breaking the ice means to initiate conversation and overcome initial awkwardness, often with a friendly gesture, a humorous remark, or a simple introduction.
It's like that moment when you're at a networking event and you strike up a conversation with a stranger asking them about their work or their interests, or when you're introduced to a friend's friend and you find a common topic to chat about.
Those initial interactions can be crucial in building rapport and forming new connections.
And sometimes in those initial interactions, we need to read between the lines to understand what someone is really saying.
Absolutely. Reading between the lines means deciphering the unspoken message or subtext of what someone is communicating often by paying attention to their body language, tone of voice, and subtle cues.
It's like that job interview where the interviewer seems enthusiastic about your qualifications, but their body language is closed and their tone is hesitant.
Yeah.
You might need to read between the lines to assess their true level of interest.
Or that friend who tells you they're fine, but their voice is strained and their eyes are downcast.
Yeah.
You might sense that there's more going on beneath the surface.
So it's about paying attention to both the verbal and nonverbal cues to get a more complete understanding of what someone is trying to convey.
And that ability to read between the lines can be so valuable in building strong and healthy relationships.
Okay, here's an idiom that I think is essential for developing empathy.
Yeah.
Put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's all about trying to understand someone else's perspective, right?
Exactly. It's about stepping outside of your own experience and imagining how someone else might be feeling or thinking, especially in a challenging situation.
It's like that friend who's going through a breakup. Instead of offering unsolicited advice or minimizing their pain, you try to understand how they might be feeling and simply offer a listening ear and a supportive shoulder.
Or that colleague who's struggling with a difficult project, instead of judging their performance, you try to understand the challenges they're facing and offer your assistance or encouragement.
Putting yourself in someone else's shoes allows you to connect with them on a deeper level and build stronger, more compassionate relationships.
I couldn't agree more. It's a cornerstone of empathy and understanding.
But let's face it, not all relationships are meant to last. What about the phrase, burn bridges?
Burning bridges means severing ties and damaging relationships beyond repair through your words or actions. It often implies a sense of recklessness and a lack of foresight.
It's like that employee who quits their job in a fit of rage, leaving on bad terms and damaging their reputation within the industry. Or that friend who betrays a confidence, causing irreparable harm to the trust between them.
Burning bridges can have long-term consequences, limiting your options and creating unnecessary conflict.
It's a reminder to think carefully about the impact of our words and actions, especially in the context of relationships that we value.
And sometimes we encounter situations where there's an elephant in the room.
Oh, I know that one.
That obvious problem or issue that everyone's aware of, but no one wants to address directly.
It's like that family gathering where everyone knows there's tension between two relatives, but no one wants to bring it up and potentially disrupt the peace. Or that team meeting where everyone knows there's a major flaw in the project plan, but no one wants to be the one to point it out.
The elephant in the room creates this unspoken tension and discomfort,
Yeah.
often hindering communication and progress.
So it's important to find a way to address the issue, even if it's uncomfortable, to clear the air and move forward.
Exactly. Open and honest communication, even about difficult topics, is essential for healthy relationships.
But sometimes we might choose to keep someone at arm's length to maintain distance or protect ourselves.
Yes, keeping someone at arm's length means setting boundaries and maintaining a degree of separation, whether emotionally or physically. It's a way of protecting yourself from potential harm or negative influence.
It's like that acquaintance who always seems to drain your energy or bring negativity into your life.
Right.
You might choose to keep them at arm's length to preserve your own well-being. Or that family member who's constantly meddling in your affairs.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries can help protect your autonomy and peace of mind.
It's about recognizing that not everyone needs to be in our inner circle,
Yeah.
and that it's okay to limit our interactions with people who don't serve our best interests.
Okay, here's a phrase that I think is super helpful in debates and discussions. Play devil's advocate.
Playing devil's advocate means arguing against a prevailing viewpoint. Not necessarily because you believe it, but to stimulate critical thinking and explore different perspectives.
It's like in a brainstorming session where someone challenges a popular idea not to be contrary, but to force the group to consider potential flaws or alternative solutions. Or in a classroom debate where someone takes the opposing side of an argument to encourage a deeper understanding of the issue.
Playing devil's advocate can be a valuable tool for uncovering hidden assumptions,
Yeah.
testing the strength of an argument, and ultimately leading to a more nuanced and well-rounded perspective.
And sometimes in those debates or competitions, we want to give someone a run for their money.
That phrase means to challenge someone, fiercely pushing them to their limits and forcing them to exert their full effort to keep up.
It's like that athlete who's determined to outperform their rival, training harder and pushing themselves to the edge to achieve victory, or that company that's determined to outshine their competitor, developing innovative products and strategies to gain market share.
It's about striving for excellence and pushing boundaries, even in the face of strong competition.
Okay, I think we've explored a lot of the nuances of relationship and social idioms. What do you think?
It's been fascinating to see how these idioms reflect the complexities of human interaction, from the joy of connection to the challenges of conflict. And I love how they offer insights into our social dynamics, communication styles, and emotional intelligence.
I agree. It's like each idiom is a little window into the human experience, revealing how we navigate the ups and downs of relationships. All right, so are you ready for one last category?
I think so. Let's do it.
Okay, these idioms draw inspiration from the natural world and the animal kingdom. Let's dive into nature and animal idioms.
Okay.
I love this category. Animals are so expressive, and it's fascinating how we use their behaviors and characteristics to describe human experiences. Okay, to kick things off, let's talk about a phrase that's all about deception. A wolf in sheep's clothing.
It describes someone who appears harmless but is actually deceitful or dangerous, masking their true intentions beneath a veneer of innocence.
It's like that con artist who charms their victims with a friendly demeanor while secretly plotting to swindle them out of their money. Or that manipulator who pretends to be your friend but is actually using you for their own gain.
It's a reminder to be discerning in our judgments of others, to look beyond surface appearances and consider their actions and motivations.
And speaking of being discerning, what about the phrase, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush?
It's a classic proverb that emphasizes the value of appreciating what you have rather than risking it all for something uncertain.
It's like that job offer you receive while you're waiting to hear back from your dream company.
Yeah.
You might be tempted to hold out for something better, but there's a risk that you'll end up with nothing at all.
Or that investor who's tempted to sell their stocks when the market is volatile, but who ultimately decides to hold on to their investments, knowing that long-term gains often require patience and a bit of risk tolerance.
So it's about weighing the potential rewards against the potential losses and making a calculated decision based on what's most important to you.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that sometimes certainty and stability are more valuable than chasing after elusive dreams.
Okay, I have to ask about one that I've always found a bit confusing.
Okay.
Let sleeping dogs lie. Why would we want to leave dogs sleeping?
It's not about literal dogs, of course.
Okay.
This idiom advises against stirring up trouble or bringing up past issues that are better left undisturbed.
It's like that argument you had with a friend months ago. You've both moved on, but bringing it up again might just reignite the conflict and damage the relationship.
Or that family secret that everyone has agreed to keep buried.
Yeah.
Digging it up might cause more pain and division than it's worth.
So it's about recognizing that some things are best left in the past and that revisiting old wounds might not be productive or healing.
Exactly. It's about choosing peace and harmony over unnecessary drama.
And speaking of drama, no one wants to be the one to rain on someone's parade. It's all about respecting other people's joy and enthusiasm, right?
Absolutely. Raining on someone's parade means spoiling their fun or dampening their enthusiasm, often by introducing negativity or criticism into a celebratory atmosphere.
It's like that friend who's excitedly sharing their good news, and you respond with skepticism or pessimism, deflating their excitement. Or that coworker who's celebrating a promotion, and you point out potential downsides or challenges, diminishing their moment of triumph.
It's a reminder to be mindful of other people's feelings and to choose words that uplift and support rather than criticize or detract.
And speaking of being mindful, what about the saying, curiosity killed the cat?
It's a cautionary proverb that warns against the dangers of excessive curiosity, suggesting that being too inquisitive or nosy can lead to trouble.
It's like that child who can't resist peeking into a forbidden room and ends up getting into mischief. Or that coworker who eavesdrops on a private conversation and ends up overhearing something they shouldn't have.
It's a reminder that sometimes it's better to respect boundaries and to prioritize discretion over satisfying our curiosity.
Okay, I have to ask about one that's always made me chuckle.
Hold your horses. It just sounds so funny.
It definitely does. And it's a common way to tell someone to slow down,
Yeah.
to exercise restraint, and to proceed with caution.
It's like that friend who's rushing into a decision without thinking things through.
Right.
You might tell them to hold their horses and consider all the options before making a commitment. Or that colleague who's eager to start a new project without proper planning.
Yeah.
Encouraging them to hold their horses can help prevent costly mistakes.
It's a reminder to be patient, to think before we act, and to approach situations with a level head.
Okay, let's talk about a phrase that I think we all need to embrace more often.
Okay.
Catnap. Who doesn't love a little snooze during the day?
Cat naps are the best. This idiom describes a short, refreshing sleep that helps restore energy and alertness.
It's like that 20-minute power nap you take on a busy afternoon, allowing you to wake up feeling revitalized and ready to tackle the rest of your day. Or that weekend afternoon nap you indulge in after a long week, allowing your body and mind to fully relax and recharge. Cat naps can be surprisingly effective in boosting productivity and improving mood.
But let's face it, some people are resistant to change.
Right.
Kind of like as stubborn as a mule.
It's a vivid comparison, isn't it? This idiom describes someone who's unyielding and inflexible, resistant to persuasion or change, even when presented with compelling evidence or arguments.
It's like that friend who refuses to try a new restaurant, even though you've raved about it. Or that colleague who clings to outdated methods, even though there are more efficient ways of doing things.
Stubbornness can be a frustrating trait, especially when it hinders progress or prevents personal growth.
But sometimes we encounter situations that leave us feeling like a deer in headlights. Have you ever felt that sense of being frozen in fear?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It describes that feeling of being paralyzed by fear or indecision, unable to act in the face of danger or a sudden overwhelming situation.
It's like that moment when you're driving at night and a deer suddenly jumps out in front of your car. You freeze for a split second, unsure of how to react. Or that job interview where you're asked a question that completely throws you off guard and you struggle to formulate a coherent response.
It's a natural response to stress and fear, and it often passes quickly as our brains catch up and we regain our ability to think clearly.
But when we need reliable information, we often seek it straight from the horse's mouth.
Exactly. That means getting information directly from the source firsthand without any intermediaries or potential for distortion.
It's like that rumor you hear about a company merger. Instead of relying on gossip or speculation, you reach out to a trusted source within the company to get confirmation. Or that news story you read online, instead of taking it at face value, you seek out primary sources or expert analysis to verify its accuracy.
Getting information straight from the horse's mouth ensures that we're basing our decisions and opinions on reliable and trustworthy data.
Okay, I have to ask about one that I think everyone can relate to at some point in their lives.
Okay.
An old flame. It's a bit romantic, isn't it?
It is. An old flame refers to a past romantic interest who still holds a special place in our hearts. Perhaps someone we once loved or who left a lasting impression on us.
It's like that high school sweetheart who you haven't seen in years, but who still pops into your thoughts from time to time. Or that former colleague who you had a brief but intense connection with, but who moved on to a different city or career path.
Old flames can evoke a mix of nostalgia, fondness, and perhaps even a touch of regret.
But sometimes we just have to accept that the past is the past and let the chips fall where they may.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
It means to accept the consequences of a situation without trying to control the outcome, to surrender to fate, and allow events to unfold naturally.
It's like that job application you submitted. You've done your best, and now you just have to wait and see if you get an interview. Or that risky investment you made. You've weighed the pros and cons, and now you have to trust that you made the right decision and let the market forces play out.
Letting the chips fall where they may can be liberating.
Freeing us from the burden of trying to control every aspect of our lives.
And finally, let's end with a proverb that's both insightful and a bit cautionary.
Okay.
A leopard can't change its spots.
It suggests that people's fundamental nature is difficult to change.
Right.
That their core personality traits and habits are deeply ingrained.
It's like that friend who's always been impulsive and reckless.
Right.
You might hope that they'll eventually become more responsible, but ultimately you have to accept that this is a fundamental part of who they are.
Or that colleague who's always been critical and negative. You might try to encourage them to be more positive.
Yeah.
But their fundamental disposition might be resistant to change.
So it's a reminder to be realistic in our expectations of others and to accept that people are who they are, flaws and all.
It's also a reminder to focus on our own personal growth, to work on the aspects of ourselves that we want to improve, and to embrace the unique qualities that make us who we are. Wow, we've really journeyed through the vast and colorful world of idioms. From everyday sayings to workplace jargon, relationship reflections, and even animal-inspired wisdom. It's amazing how these phrases enrich our language and deepen our understanding of the human experience.
It's been a truly fascinating exploration, hasn't it?
Yeah.
We've uncovered the origins, meanings, and even potential pitfalls of using these common expressions. And I think we've both gained a deeper appreciation for the power of idioms to add depth, humor, and cultural richness to our communication.
Absolutely. And I hope our listeners feel the same way. I encourage you to embrace the power of idioms, to sprinkle them into your conversations, and to appreciate the way they connect us to history, culture, and the shared human experience.
Language is constantly evolving, and new idioms are born all the time.
Right.
So pay attention to the language around you. You might just discover a new favorite way to express yourself.
And on that note, we'll let you go. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the wonderful world of idioms.